All right. This particular case here on Hiawatha actually started back in October 22nd, when we got a call from a Mr. James Burke, and he had some concerns about his brother Raymond Burke. And we get about 200 missing persons calls a year, actually a little more than that. So it started out as a typical missing persons report, and we sent a deputy out. And when the deputy got here, he spoke to the girlfriend of Mr. Burke, Raymond Burke's son. So Mr. Burke's son and his son's girlfriend live on the property. And they had said that Mr. Burke, Raymond Burke, had left to an unknown state. He actually left the state, according to her, and they weren't sure where he was or when or if he'd be back. They actually thought said that they thought he had actually moved, but weren't sure where. And so we continued the investigation, and we talked to Raymond's son, who gave us basically the same story as his girlfriend, that his father had left. The problem was that he had left his car and his 5 dogs. So Mr. Burke's brother was concerned about his welfare. During the course of the next couple months, we were checking bank records and so forth, and we saw some things that concerned us about Mr. Burke's bank account. Namely, his son had made some withdrawals. So yesterday, we brought the son and the girlfriend in and started talking to them about the withdrawals. Initially, the son refused to give us much information when he knew that we were considering him a possible suspect, but his girlfriend did later admit that Mr. Burke's son had in fact killed him, and that they had buried his body here on the property at the house back in mid-November, on or around November 13th, so about a week or 10 days before we actually got the initial call. And after we arrested Mr. Burke's son for the murder, then he decided that he did want to talk with us, and he also verified that he had murdered his father. And both stories were very similar in the fact that there was an argument, and Mr. Burke's son hit him with a flashlight and incapacitated him, and while he was incapacitated, strangled him until he was deceased, and then later buried him here on the property in the backyard near the gravesite of a family pet. So that was late yesterday afternoon and evening after dark. So this morning we came out here to continue the investigation, and we have uncovered what we believe to be a human body, and we assume it is Mr. Burke, of course. And Mr. Burke's son, Christopher Burke, has been arrested on second-degree murder and is in jail with no bond. And the investigation obviously continues. We'll be out here for probably at least a couple days exhuming the body and collecting the evidence in this particular case. So that's pretty much where we stand right now, but the good news is that we do have the person that we believe is responsible for the murder in custody, in jail right now. So the citizens in the area can definitely rest easy.
Sheriff, what about the girlfriend? Is she not facing any charges?
Right now the investigation is ongoing. She has not been charged at this moment. She's definitely a witness, but we are going to continue with the investigation.
Are you going to release her name?
Yes, her name is Sharon Atkinson, and the information should be in the press release.
Is she a mother?
Is she a mother? I don't know if she has any children or not.
Did they live here?
They all 3 lived on the property when the altercation occurred.
Sheriff, we had heard from
initially came here back in October. Any indication that was anything wrong? Any area in the background was disturbed?
Other than the initial concern by the victim's brother that he was missing, and the story was a little bit unusual that he up and left, but as I said, we have at least a couple of hundred of these a year, and oftentimes the person did just leave on vacation, didn't tell anybody or refused to tell people where they were going. They're found safe, or they end up in the hospital or something else. So it's not unusual to to have a missing persons investigation at the surface seems a little suspicious and turns out to be nothing. So,
but there was at least some indication that something wasn't adding up, so you didn't just say, okay, everything seems fine, we'll just move on.
Absolutely. The victim's cell phone went to voicemail from the very beginning, and that's why his brother was concerned. I guess his brother had spoken to him quite frequently, at least once a week or thereabouts, and wasn't able to get in touch with him for several days. His brother lives in the Tampa Bay area, but in the Valrico area, so it's not really close by, and he was very concerned about him, and obviously now we know with good reason.
How much money was drained from the bank account? What was he purchasing? Can you give us an idea?
I don't have that information, and I don't believe we're prepared to release that just yet. But there were a few withdrawals by the son that using his ATM card that obviously made us suspicious.
And was it your initial suspicions, your inability to get in touch with him, that led you to examine bank records?
Yes, absolutely. Anytime we have a missing persons report, and over the period of days and weeks that follow, we do continue to look into it and check bank records and so forth, and sometimes those bank records lead us to the actual person who's missing, showing that they are still alive and they're fine. They just don't want anybody to find them, and in this case it led to the son withdrawing money, which obviously raised our suspicions considerably.
Sheriff, what about that argument with the flashlight? What was that argument about?
I don't have that information, but I do know that there was some animosity between the son, and we do have a little bit of history with some domestic violence between the son and the father. It's my understanding, and I haven't double verified that, but one of the detectives told me that there was an old restraining order that has since expired within the last several months. So it's not our first dealing with them, but we obviously had nothing this serious in the past.
Who had the restraining order against whom?
I'm sorry?
Do you know who had the restraining order?
I believe the father had the restraining order against the son.
So the father lived out here alone?
No, he lived here with the son and the son's girlfriend. Everybody lived on the property.
But prior to the restraining order?
Well, and that's the issue. I think the restraining order was one of the very generic ones that says, you're not allowed to do violence against the victim. So I don't think it had a clause in there about keeping away, because he would have been in violation. But
did the suspect have a job, or
that I don't have that information.
Okay.
Did they bury the body together, the girlfriend and the son?
Well, she was definitely aware of it. I don't know if I don't have the particulars about who actually buried the body, but they were both aware of it, and she was in the area at the time.
Did they say why that they chose to do that?
No, I don't think they gave us that information.
So she's not in custody at this point?
Not at this point, but the investigation continues, obviously.
Any
Are you concerned about being a flight risk at this point?
The investigation's continuing.
One of the other things is that he left no forwarding address for his Social Security checks.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one thing we were concerned about. We were going to see what happened with the Social Security checks. He was getting those. He was, I believe, he was 61 years of age, if I'm not mistaken, and we were going to try to track and see if he was able to get those and cash them, and who cashed them, and so forth. But prior to us being able to get that information from the federal government, we were able to get it through local bank records, the ATM records.
So was he having direct deposit Social Security checks?
That I'm not sure. I don't believe so, but don't quote me on that. I think he was getting the hard checks, but I'm not sure about that.
When did the withdrawals begin? Soon after the
It obviously was sometime within the last couple months. I don't have the dates with me, because this is obviously all unfolding. We didn't even start talking to them till late yesterday afternoon, actually yesterday evening, and the confessions were last night after dark, so we didn't even come out here and really start processing the crime scene until this morning. So.
And he waived his right to an